Hey y'all, welcome back, or welcome if you are new. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in June. So June is over, and June is the 1 month out of the year with my busy teaching schedule that I actually get to kind of work at my own pace. So even though I'm not necessarily working all the time, there's still some stuff I'm having to get done. But with all of that extra time that I'm able to fit in, I'm able to get a lot of reading done. This year, I didn't do anything crazy for the summer. I took some time for myself, used it for mental health time, and for me, mental health time normally means a lot of reading. And because of that, I have read more books than I think I have ever read in 1 month before. I read 12 books, and out of those 12 books, I've found some new favorites, and I've found possibly my worst book of the year. With all of that said, let's get started. And we are going to go from the order of lowest rated up to our highest rated. So this month I have found probably my worst book of the year and the only 1 star that I've given out in all of 2024. And I think it's only the second I've given out at all. Hide by Kirsten White. Before I even get into this is the only book that I've listened to on audio fully this month without having the book with me. And normally I would maybe think, oh, okay, I was just distracted. No, I just really did not like this book. And I hate to be that person that goes on and is like, this is trash. I should have listened to all of the reviews I heard and just not even picked it up. So, Hide by Kirsten White. We are following this woman. I can't even remember her name at this point. Basically, she's homeless, and she is going to try to win money at a hide-and-seek competition in an abandoned amusement park. And I did not realize fully what this exactly was about, or I would have never picked up something with that premise. And as the book goes on, it gets dark and twisty, but in the most just absolutely ridiculous way that has nothing to do with anything. It gets randomly starts to have queer representation in a romance that there's just does not hardly anything for this book at all. The whole idea was just completely ridiculous. I could go on a whole rant about all of the issues I've had with it, whether it was the poor characters or the writing or just that literally everyone in it was absolutely obnoxious. But instead of going into all of those details, I'm just going to say, if you've heard bad reviews of this, they're not lying. It is not worth the time. Don't pick it up. My only 2-star review for the month of June is going to be another book by Matt Shaw. Now, whenever I started picking these up, I had not heard of a lot of the controversy around the author. I guess there was some kind of internet drama and some things that I know I wouldn't support were said. I'm not going to take any sides because I have not researched it enough. It's probably not going to be another author I pick up from again because of all of that kind of stuff going on. Usually I don't like to get mixed in super much, and I don't want to recommend books out from someone who has said potentially harming things to other people. And it's something I probably need to do my research more on anyways. I think I have one other book I've bought from this author, and probably going to be my last. So this is one of those books that completely lives off of its gimmick. I read the first one of these because I thought it was a neat idea of, this is a book the author released, and the idea is it was getting pulled from the stores the moment that it was all starting to come out. The first one I thought, okay, yeah, this is kind of a fun time. I think I gave it around a 3 stars. This one, not so much. There's no name, there's no title, anything like that, and it just wasn't worth the time. And now we're going to start getting into the 3 stars, and this is where we start to get more into books that I've actually enjoyed reading. So our first 3-star book of the month that I'm going to be talking about is going to be Salt Slow by Julia Armfield. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this. If you watched my Queer Authors Reading vlog, which I will have linked down below, then you probably heard me talk about this. Julia Armfield is slowly becoming one of my all-time favorite authors just because of the way that she writes. This, in particular, is a short story collection that really talks about different relationships between people, many of them queer, but it has some like almost horror or sci-fi or different kind of feels depending on the story. I really enjoyed this collection, but as always, short story collections are really hit or miss with me, and it's rare that I give them a super high rating, even if it's from an author I like a lot. There are those, the first couple of stories in this are ones that I think about regularly. The first couple of stories in this, though, are some that I've been thinking about regularly. Especially the second story, there's this whole thing about sleep. That one was called The Great Awake, and it's just talking about, like, as humans, how we rely on sleep and what life might be like if we didn't need to. And it had some really neat sci-fi and fantastical supernatural type elements to it. It was really creepy, amazing story. I would recommend this collection, especially if you like weird fiction. But it is going to get a 3-star because there were, as usual, some that just didn't work for me. And then our other 3-star pick is going to be The Ritual by Adam Neville. So The Ritual is basically, we are following 4 men that are hiking in the wilderness in Scandinavia, and they're wearing out. Some of them are injured. There's a lot of other stuff going on, and basically they decide to take a shortcut through this reserve or this national park. And while they're there, some weird things start to really go down. This was one that I kind of picked up on a whim because I've enjoyed the only other work that I've read from Adam Neville in the past, which I also gave a 3-star. But I have also seen the movie of this beforehand, which is very rare that I do that. And I really enjoyed the movie adaptation. For me, this is one of those weird instances where the movie adaptation was actually better than the book for me. And I don't think it's because I watched it first. I just liked the way that it worked on screen. I thought there were some really fun, creepy moments in this. I did not, however, like a lot of the characters and the men that we were following. And I think that's on purpose, but it really kind of drew me out for a little bit. My biggest issue, though, was it just continued to describe the exact same forest over and over and over again, as if we haven't been stuck in the forest for sometimes going on days. It really drugged me out. I got it. It was a creepy forest. Tell me more about what else is going on. The second half of this book, though, gets really unhinged. I liked it a lot more, but not everything in it worked. Some of it was just a little too over the top. It was still a fun time. I enjoyed it. I think I'll give Neville maybe one more shot before I really decide how I feel about his books, because they keep landing around at 3, and then we'll go from there. Our biggest stack of books is coming in at 3.5 stars. So this is the first year that I've really started giving half-star ratings, and it has really helped me think through more about what I've thought about books. Because sometimes there's just something that makes, a 3.5 a little bit different than a 3, or even a 5 more than a 4.5. Our first book, it was also for my queer author vlog, and that would be A Minor Chorus by Billy Ray Bilcourt. We are following our main character, who has basically decided that he wants to drop out of academia while he's working on his major thesis, and it kind of just explores him kind of re-exploring but also interviewing people throughout his life. And he is both queer and indigenous, which is the big kind of theme behind this. Sometimes this was a little pretentious for me in the writing, but overall, I still really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed some of the commentary that was being made, especially on queer and indigenous people. So even though I enjoyed a lot of that commentary, there were still times where it just kind of drug on, and there wasn't really any big ending or anything that it led up to. It was just this guy going about his research, people sharing their stories. I think the strangest thing is that this is completely fictitious, but it's written almost as if it's meant to be nonfiction. And it just sat really weird with me for that way. I don't know if many of these experiences are real or influenced by the author's life, because they are also queer and indigenous, but I think I would have been more interested reading a memoir from this author than something that was written in this way where it was meant to almost sound like one. Also with the 3.5 stars, we have Leave the World Behind by Ramon Alam. Randomly found this maybe a month or so ago in like a $5 bin, I'm pretty sure. And I was just like, oh, isn't that a movie now? I guess I'll pick it up, even though it's never really caught my attention. And this was not quite what I thought it was going to be. And I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. This is about a family who are basically going on vacation outside of New York. They've gotten an Airbnb. They're out, they're relaxing, they're having a good time. And then they get a knock on the door one night, and it is the people who own the B&B. It's this elderly black couple that kind of come in, and they're just like, hey, we're sorry to bother you. We know you have this rented out, but we need to stay here. And basically come in, and they are staying in this B&B with the couple that's renting it out. And as it goes on, there's been some musing of what's been going on in the outside world. And it just kind of goes from there while these people basically leave the world behind. This turned out to be what I thought was going to be kind of a racial thriller, especially with it being the black couple coming into the B&B. And there was a lot more other things going on. I don't want to fully spoil it. I ended up really kind of enjoying the route that it took. This felt to me, though, like it was the introduction to the beginning of a movie and not its own full story. It was almost like the start of like a TV series. It was like the first episode. I think had this wrapped up a little cleaner or given just a little bit more information, even though it was meant to have kind of an ambiguous ending, I think that it would have worked better for me. But there were some really great moments. There was an instance or two of body horror, very light body horror, but kind of body horror that I really enjoyed. And I really want to read more from this author. And then our last 3.5-star book would be Elegy for the Undead by Matthew Vesely. I read this actually just like 3 days ago, and I read this all in one sitting, and this was just a fun little novella. I read this as part of the 24-hour horror-a-thon with Ashley's Little Library. Her channel is definitely worth checking out. In this book, it is basically what it says in the title. It is an elegy. And we are following a gay couple named Lyle and Jude. We're kind of following them through the first year or so of marriage, and we are kind of learning about how their relationship was set up, but at the same time, we are following them as Lyle has been bitten by what is essentially a zombie. There's a big virus outbreak that has happened, and Lyle has been bitten. And this is not about the zombies. This is about the relationship. And it's really just the elegy of what it is to lose someone to sickness, especially earlier on in a marriage. And I did really enjoy this, but it just felt too simple for me, actually. I've read so much grief horror at this point that I think this is a great introduction for someone who maybe hasn't read it. It reminded me a lot of an easier to read version of Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. And I would recommend this out, especially if you want to dip your toes into something like this. I don't think it is like the greatest masterpiece of something like this either. But it is an elegy, it's very melancholy, and it does what it wants to do very well. Our only 4-star read of June is going to be Bellies by Nicola Dennon. This was a book that I had quite a road trip with. In this, we are following Ming and Tom, who are in a gay relationship, and then over the course of the story, one of the characters decides to come out as trans. And it follows them as they're navigating both their relationship and that character's transition. The reason that I don't say that character's name is in the synopsis, it kind of tells you who it's going to be, but it doesn't happen for such a large portion of this book. I was so excited to jump into this. It's about someone transitioning. It is from a trans author, and I thought when I picked this up for my queer author vlog that it was just going to be like the best thing for that kind of representation, and it really was great. But then I started reading it, and nothing regarding that transition was hardly happening. It was just kind of their relationship and the meeting and, you know, the first couple months of them dating. And it's really setting it up, but it was so slow for me. And then once things started to happen, I really, really got invested. And I think I said this in my queer author vlog. I think it takes some really special talent to go into a book by a trans author about the trans experience and then have made me care so much about the cis white male character. And that's exactly what they did. There were so many high emotions, especially in the last half of this book. There were so many things explored that I really did end up enjoying more than I thought I was going to. I do think it really did feel almost like a debut, but for someone who doesn't always read this type of story, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great time in the end, and I really look forward to what else this author comes out with. If you've been counting along, we still have 4 books left, and I don't think I've had a month in a long time where I've had this many books this highly rated. So going into our 4.5 stars, I had 2 4.5s this month. The first of those was in my Stephen King vlog, and that would have been Christine. So Christine was my next book on my publication order read-through of King's work, and this was such a good one. His work sometimes can be really hit or miss for me. Every now and then there's quite a few duds in there, but this one it sat really well. I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot, so I'll also link this vlog down below if you want to check out my full thoughts. But it's an obsession story, it's a coming-of-age story, it's about a haunted car, which I enjoyed way more than I thought I would, and it's just a story that follows 2 boys as they are going through their late teen years and becoming adults, and how some obsession and some other supernatural forces may kind of get in the way of that. It's dark, it gets a little bloody. It was a great time, and it reminded me why I love King so much. And our other 4.5 is going to be Killing Stalking, Volume 2. And I do not often read any kind of manga or manhwa or anything like that at all. It is not something that I gravitate towards, even like graphic novels and stuff. But every now and then I hear on BookTube where someone's talking about one, and it just really intrigues me, especially usually the dark ones. I picked up a couple Junji Itos, but I figured a few months ago I decided to give this one a try. I read the first volume. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was dark. It was not positive. It's not something you would just recommend out to people, but it was something I really liked, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on the second volume, and I did, and I thought this one was honestly better than the first one. Basically, in this, we are following Yunbum, who is he is just kind of this scrawny guy, but like he's got this crush on Sang-woo, who is someone he had met either in the army or in class, or I don't know. They've got a weird history kind of running through there, and he stalks Sang-woo and breaks into his house and finds out that Sang-woo is a serial killer. And it just kind of goes from there as we're following this extremely, extremely toxic relationship kind of type thing that's going on. It's a mess. It's weird. It's crazy. I just really have a good time with these. Like I said, I don't know how to like recommend these out, but if you like dark, creepy things, even if like graphic novels or manhwa in this case just aren't your usual thing, maybe give it a try, because I've enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. And our last 2 books were both 5-star reads, which I am so excited to get more 5 stars because I have not had very many this year. I think this puts me up to 6. So the first of those is the last book that I read in my queer author vlog, and that is The Trees Grew Because I Bled There by Eric LaRocca. Now, I know earlier I said I don't very often give short stories 5 stars, but there's something about Eric LaRocca short stories that just hit different. And in this, they're just weird, they're toxic, they're strange. I think this is my 4th book by Eric LaRocca, and my 2nd one that was short stories, and I just love him. I think he has some of the best writing. I am so excited. I saw the other day where he announced, like, not only does he have his new short stories that are coming out in January, but he has like 5 more books in the work. And one of them is like a series. I don't know if that's going to be a short series or what it's going to be, but I am so excited for it. This book was amazing. I'm not going to go a whole lot more in detail, but you can check out that queer author vlog if you want to see more of my thoughts. And then our final book, which is now probably going to be in my top of the year. And before I even hold this up, I was not even going to pick this book up, and then I saw it for cheap. I just saw it at McKay's, and I was like, you know what? I think I might try that, because everyone says so many good things about it, and I was like, you're just not going to care for it. Because people are going to make a hype about it. It's not going to be worth it. It's not worth your time. This may be the best or second best book that I've read all year, and that's going to be Mayfly by C.J. Leede. In this story, we are following Maeve, who is essentially a snow queen at a popular theme park, if you can figure out who that is. But basically, we're following Maeve as she works for what is alluded to be Elsa at Disney World. Maeve really relates to how Elsa likes to push boundaries against the social norm, because Maeve also likes to push the social norm. And she is dark, and she is twisty, and she is crazy, and you can't help but love her somehow anyways. And basically, we're just following Maeve as she goes down this path of unraveling. Her grandmother, who is the only person in her family, at least, that she's ever really cared about, and her best friend that she works with, who's the only other person that she's ever really cared about, she has set a timeline of 2 years for, because her grandmother is about to die and has about 2 years left, and her best friend has been trying to become a famous actress, and according to the timeline of how long all that usually takes, in her head, Maeve has decided that's also in 2 years. And then things start happening in her life quicker than Maeve is ready for. I've heard this described as extreme horror, and it really reaches that borderline. There are some gruesome torture scenes. This is one of the few books that has ever made me actually get, like, grossed out or, like, have some type of reaction while reading. Because there's very few things that do that to me in general, especially in books. It was just crazy. The writing is so good. The character lines are interwoven really well, as we're seeing, like, the different things going on in Maeve's life. The ending I'd had spoiled for me, and it still hit in a way that I couldn't imagine it hitting, having known what was coming. I loved it. I highly recommend this. If you like anything dark and disturbing, this is your book. And with that, that is all of the books that I've read in June. So if you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave the eyeball emoji in the comments for Mayfly, because it's got that giant eyeball on the cover. And please be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this or hear more reviews. I am so happy to have wrapped up my first month on BookTube, and I'm just having a blast. I'm enjoying my reading time, and I'm really liking sharing it with you guys. So with that said, I can't wait to see you guys in the next one, and I'll see you later. Bye.